right? Something I want to do. Right as that happened, over the course of a couple weeks, I have one of the biggest drawdowns of my investing career, 40%. I've been worse.
How do you lose 40%? That's a lot of money. Because the market only went down a little bit.
That's what's so crazy. I mean, I got caught up. I just happened to have the same major investment as Leopold, right? Like, you know this. I was very early on Bloom Energy. He was very early on Bloom Energy. Both of us compounded and levered into Bloom. We 6x, 7, 8x our money on Bloom, even without leverage. Like, Bloom is one of the biggest investments I've ever made. Bloom got cut by, I don't know, 45%. It went from like $300 a share to $165 over a short period of time. That was one of my largest positions right there.
What price did you buy into Bloom Energy?
I bought Bloom Energy all around. I bought a few hundred shares at like $70, bought a few hundred at 100 and something, bought a few hundred at 300 and something. So I was buying kind of like all around, but I ended up getting obliterated on Bloom. Fortunately, not that bad, because I was selling some calls in the shares and I was doing some tricky options that hurt me and helped me at the same time. Overall, I would say I probably lost on Bloom, but it's okay because I made it up elsewhere.
Here's the thing. So my account was slaughtered. And don't feel bad for me, because you guys know this. My account was hitting all-time highs. Like before this started, I was starting from a very good place, which is why I decided, hey, I can afford to take out these huge chunks of money to do these other things that I want to do in my life. Other investments, other projects, right? I didn't expect within the same week for my account to get crushed 40%. So it was kind of a big mental hit. I also knew, without knowing what was happening to Leopold, I knew what he owned. Whether or not it was someone manipulating that to try to mess with him didn't really matter to me. I knew that he was getting margin called. He had to be getting margin called. I assumed he owed something in the range of 10 plus billion very quickly. And I knew that was what was driving the down cycle in Bloom Energy and Nebius and a few of these other AI names, in addition to Sector News that was pushing it down, right? So because I knew about that forced downflow, I knew it was going to revert. I just didn't have the timing, right? And so here's where you get into what I do. Everything's a probability game. I knew we were days away from having that trade reverse, because at some point his margin call would end, and Bloom did not deserve to be at $165 a share. Like, it was outrageous. In fact, all of these names, the entire sector move was completely ridiculous and fueled by not just his margin calls, but I knew all of Korea was getting margin called. Basically, every levered fund in South Korea was getting liquidated over the same time period, because what are they invested in? Bloom Energy is one of the biggest names in South Korea, right? Basically, all the Leopold stuff is all the South Korea stuff, which is all the Chris Camilla stuff. So me, Leopold, and South Korea were all getting crushed at the same time. So what are you going to do? Fortunately, I'm not managing an institutional fund. My account is more liquid. I have more control over it, and I wasn't 4x levered like Leopold. I was like 1x levered.
So a lot of people are accusing you on Twitter of irresponsible risk-taking that you shouldn't even be discussing publicly. What do you say to that?
That's insane. Like, I have full control over the risk in my account. You guys know this. Like, no one is more obsessive over every move that they make than me. So, first of all, let's start here. We all have different investment objectives, right? My objectives are very different than yours. They're very different from other investors. The entirety of my brokerage account is a ultra high risk, ultra high reward account. I'm trying to grow that account into $1 billion account, right? That's not going to happen without concentration. It's not going to happen without leverage, and it's not going to happen without me making really bold bets when I have ultra high conviction in a trade. I only get that conviction a few times a year. So when it happens, I have to go all in on that trade. It's all about probability. I know that every time I go in on a high conviction trade, there's things that I know I don't know, and there's things that I don't know that I don't know. Okay? I know that there's an infinite number of things that could happen that could zero me out on that trade, because they're usually levered, they're usually on margin, they're usually with options. I'm a big boy. I've been doing this for like close to 30 years. Okay? So like, I know what I'm doing. I know the risk. I know that if I make 6 of those trades in a row, that account is pretty close to being gone, right? I get that. There is a theoretical in an ultra high risk, ultra high reward account. There's a theoretical there that account can get wiped out. I know that. I'm willing to take that risk. Hasn't happened yet. Hasn't even gotten that close yet, right? 40% markdown. I basically had another 20% of the account at risk. And by the way, that Wednesday, I had a lot of options that expired on Wednesday. All got zeroed out. Okay.
How much money?
7 figures of options that got zeroed out that day. It was a 24-hour trade that got zeroed out. Again, I knew that we were close to the end. I knew that the liquidation had to end within a matter of hours or days, and I was willing to take that risk because even though I got wiped out on that Wednesday trade, if it would have turned that day, it would have been insane. It would have been like a 25 to 30x investment. We're talking about tens of millions, and that's the trade that I had been working all spring and summer. That is the highest conviction trade I've made in years. I was hoping it would play out before earnings, but if it didn't, earnings was my last shot. And because of the things that happened running into Amazon earnings, I had an exceptionally high degree of confidence that it's not about Amazon nailing earnings. That was obvious. It's about how they would handle the earnings call. And these are things that other investors generally don't think about that I'm obsessive with.
So walk us through the last month. At the peak, how much were you down?
All right, I'm not going to get like super granular because people have started, and this makes me really nervous, especially the Leopold stuff. Maybe I'm paranoid. Over the last couple of years, I feel like there's one or more people with a lot more money than me that for whatever reason, they want to mess with me and my trades. And I've seen it. I've seen it with some of my trades that are easier to mess with when it comes to like mid caps, small caps.
How do they do that?
Well, as you guys know, like I run a very anti-Wall Street kind of content, and I have for 20 years. I poke fun at the institutions of Wall Street. Some of those guys are my best friends. But I've been harping on Wall Street for 2 decades, saying that it's the world's largest scamming operation. I believe it is. I don't think that people should have the world's money parked in, institutional accounts that basically scam money every year to not perform any better than you could perform being invested in a passive fund. And I think that's probably pissed more than a few people off. And the same way that I think Leopold probably pissed more than a few people off being a cocky 20-something-year-old that is managing like $40 billion of capital and is now taking probably more media airspace than the Citadels and the King Griffins of the world. He put a target on his back, right? I'm not saying like I have actually put a target on my back, but it's something that's on my mind. So I'm trying to stay a little less granular these days about like exact trades and exactly how I position them. But it's 8 figures. I was down 8 figures, right? Or a little close to 8 figures.
What chance would you have been wrong?
I would say there was probably a 20% chance of that trade not going well on Friday. So I was like 80% confident. And the 20%, again, are kind of things that I knew I didn't know and things I didn't know that I didn't know. I mean, we're in a situation with Trump and Iran. We don't know what's going to happen any night of the week. Amazon, I was confident was going to beat their numbers. I mean, I was obsessive. You guys, I put so much work into this trade. Going right into that trade last week, I was still searching for every theoretical data point that I could find that would allow me to properly assess the degree to which they were likely to beat their AWS number. Now, I think Amazon had predicted like a 22% beat. I think the whisper number was like 25% on the street, and I was confident it was going to come somewhere north of 25. So the only question in my mind was how are they going to handle the call? Now, this is the nuance in the social arbitrage here. If you look at how Google handled their call, and you look at how Microsoft handled their call, you have to look at Amazon management. Okay, now look at Jassy, he's a smart guy. He sees what happened to Google. He sees what happened to Microsoft. Microsoft flawlessly handled the CapEx question, right? They got in front of it, and they were basically like, hey, we don't have any CapEx risk, guys. If the demand doesn't fully materialize as we see it right in front of us, we can redirect it. And so I knew it was to me, it was like a 99.9% chance that Jassy was going to handle it the same way, in his own way, by basically saying, hey, we know this is scaring you, 200 billion, we're actually going to increase it to 220. But guys, not only do we see the demand, it's factual, it's happening, but if something catastrophic happens, the majority of the money that we have in CapEx projected the next year, we can take off the table because it's towards equipment and we don't have to commit to until the very last piece of that data center, right? So I felt confident. Like there's no way that I was going to put that much work into Amazon this year. And even after what happened to me on Wednesday and the week before, because I've been losing money like every week, right? There's no way I was going to watch Amazon knock it out of the park and me not participate. I wasn't even nervous. That's what's so crazy. Like I was actually in my truck driving to Austin when earnings happened, and I wasn't even following it. Like I was just like, I had a real sense of calm over me. I was like, hey, if I have to do this, and I think it's going to work out. I just didn't know how well it was going to work out.
And so I'm suspecting you probably took your portfolio down to like the low 7 figures, which is somewhat of, I mean, for you,
It wasn't that low.
It wasn't that low.
It was still kind of in and around high 7 figures, low 8 figures.
But you had previously lost close to 8 figures in the portfolio. And now then you, for this Amazon trade, put a few $1 million into Amazon call options, and it was a heavy investment.
Amazon blew.
Are you willing to say how much you put into those trades for the?
Yeah, it was, I don't know, like a couple $1 million of options, and
Expiring when?
Friday, the next day, basically. Yeah. So, and on top of that, my account was fully levered. So I basically had to sell stuff to make this happen. So I had to liquidate. I had to liquidate millions of dollars of equity that was less important to me in order to make that options trade.
And so you ran it up about 8 figures.
Yeah, about 10 million in a day.
And how did that feel? Like walk me through looking at your portfolio and seeing that it's up $10 million.
I will tell you this: making money like that after you lost money feels better, much better, than just making the money. Right? Like, there's something about seeing your account get crushed and then making a really bold move to make it all back plus some. So I ended up doing better than what I lost. It's like a few million more than what I lost is what I made. It was the best feeling in the world because you know it was the hardest thing in the world to do, and you forced yourself to do it because it was the right thing to do. I would say, from my sense, it would have been bad risk management for me not to do it. If you know how much work I put into the trade, you would think it's really bad risk management not to make that trade.
So if you had millions of dollars in call options expiring in 1 week on this one bet that Amazon would have a good earnings call, what would have happened if the recovery on Amazon came 2 weeks later?
And most people think forming an LLC is just about filling out one form and calling it a day. But there's a lot more to it than that. And if you skip the rest, your LLC isn't really set up the way it needs to be. That is why we have partnered with Northwest Registered Agents. For $39 plus state fees, Northwest handles the state filing and makes sure you have everything you actually need. Your operating agreement, membership certificates, and banking resolutions. Without those documents, you might be registered with the state, but you're not really ready to operate because banks, vendors, and partners expect to see it. Plus, you get a free domain, website, email, and phone number when you file your LLC through Northwest, which means your business is ready to operate right away. And your home address never goes on the public record. Northwest uses their own address on your filing instead of yours.
So if you want your LLC done right the first time, just go to northwestregisteredagent.com/ICH to get started.
It's northwestregisteredagent.com/ICH or click the link down below in the description to get your LLC filed.
Thank you, Northwest Registered Agent, for sponsoring this episode. So if you had millions of dollars in call options expiring in 1 week on this one bet that Amazon would have a good earnings call, what would have happened if the recovery on Amazon came 2 weeks later?
I have resources to continue that trade, just not as large, right? So the trade the next week would have been smaller, and the payoff would have been smaller.
And you would have just kept rolling that.
I would have kept rolling it for a few more weeks if I had confidence that there was a trigger event that week that gave me a meaningful probability of winning on the trade. Okay, so like I can't say this with confidence now. I'd have to like assess the trade at that moment in time. But the Amazon earnings call was a big event. Like, it was a meaningful event, which is why I say there was an 80% chance of me hitting the trade.
But what's the difference between what you're doing and gambling? Because when it comes to options, you could be right about the stock and just a little off on the timing. And that means you're wrong overall.
I hate the gambling analogy because gambling means so many things to so many different people. Again, it all starts with what your objectives are and what your risk tolerance is. And on top of that, you have to understand that I do excessive amounts of probability analysis. So I essentially run through every theoretical scenario on that trade that could happen, that I'm aware of. I look through every scenario, good and bad. And I make an assessment on how likely each scenario is to play out based on actual research. In this case, over 100 hours of deep research on Amazon. And you're playing probabilities. So I guess theoretically, everything in life is a gamble if you want to look at it like that. I mean, walking outside your door is a gamble because there's a theoretical possibility you could trip and die, right? So that's why I hate the analogy. It's not like investing versus gambling. It's like, do you understand the risk you're taking? And have you done the work? Or are you just willy-nilly throwing money out there that you don't know what the hell you're doing, right? This is what I do. This is my entire life, guys. So I live for this. And like I said, I think there was about an 80% chance that I would nail that trade. 20% chance I wouldn't. I'm going to take that every single time. And by the way, 80% chance of not doubling your money. 80% chance of like 6xing your money. I mean, that's insane. In fact, I knew when I placed that trade that I was going to be disappointed in myself for not making that trade larger. I knew that that trade should have been triple. It should have been a $30 to $40 million day for me. I knew that. But with my account hemorrhaging, with all this stuff happening in my life, just like I wasn't mentally prepared to make the trade. That was my fault. Like it should have been a 30 to 40.
Do you feel bad about not making $40 million?
I don't feel bad, but I knew I was going to regret it. When I made the trade, I wasn't like, I'm going to regret making this trade because I might lose my money. It's like, I am going to regret not going bigger into this trade.
So it's so funny that I was just telling Jack this. There's a stock I got for $20. I sold it at $55. But had I waited just an hour later, I could have sold it at like 68. And I was telling Jack, man, I lost out on all this money because I could have waited a little more. But at the end of the day, it's like you're just kind of picking reasons not to be happy.
Also, it was like $1,000. So like there's
Oh, no, it was $9,000 after tax.
I don't even know what that means.
It was more than a $10,000 profit for waiting like 2 hours.
You know, like honestly, guys, this is what pisses me off so much about, and I'm not pissed off. But by the way, I love all the commentary on X. Like, yeah, my account blew up this last week. I told you guys I was eating dinner alone in Austin on Friday night at a really nice restaurant, sitting in the corner at a table, and it took me like over 2 hours just to do all the replies to one single thread on X. I love it. I live for that. Like, I have waited for decades to have a generation start investing, to have a generation caring this much about investing. I don't care if they're critiquing me. The bottom line is they care. This is literally the entirety of my life, is to try to get every human on earth into the investor class, and it's actually starting to happen. So I invite it. I invite the criticism, but I also want people to understand that the majority of investors right now, they're just paying attention to noise. They're all part of the herd, right? Like, that's not how you generate alpha, right? That's not how you knock it out of the park. You have to be an independent thinker. Everything I see on X right now is noise. Like, the easiest trade right now is just not to pay attention to the noise and just actually try to assess the ground truth in something, anything. If you can figure out the ground truth in anything and place a bet on it, you're gonna win.
I want to show you this tweet that went pretty viral on X. This person retweeted. Admittedly, while pissing my pants as my account was hemorrhaging. Those are the hardest trades you'll ever make, but can be the most rewarding. Please, people, don't get into a trade that makes you piss your pants. This is high-risk stuff. Belongs in the sports betting / prediction market bucket. Entertaining, sure, and it worked for Chris. But you're far better off just buying and holding great companies using an amount of money that won't make you lose sleep at night or piss your pants.
Don't tell people what their account objective is or what their level for risk is. In my account that has an objective to generate outsized returns by taking concentrated levered bets on high conviction trades, there are going to be moments where I have high conviction and I feel that the probability is high that I'm going to win, but there is some probability that I'm going to get wiped out on that trade. And in those situations, I'm a human and I'm nervous, okay? And I'm going to get nauseous, I might throw up, I might piss my pants, whatever, right? Like, that is the reality of someone that manages a high-risk, high-reward account that makes high-concentration levered bets on high-conviction calls. That's not everyone, but it's me. And it's not just me. There are a lot of people out there that choose to have a separate account or a portion of their account where they want to take levered, concentrated, high-risk bets on things they believe in, that they put the work in on, that they believe will end up with a good outcome, but know, because they're smart enough to know, that it's far from a guarantee. And it's okay
You're
to
the
be
only
nervous.
viewer?
It's okay
Hello.
to crap your pants for a second, okay, while you're waiting for
Kai,
that to come out.
Kai Ori.
I don't see that as bad. But again, it's because of the type of account that I manage, okay? It's my objective. It's my response.
I'm gonna switch it
It's
to
not
my
yours.
phone.
It's not that guy's, but there are a lot of people that want to do that. And like, we're allowed to, and it's not a bad thing. And then when we turn tens of thousands of dollars into tens of millions of dollars in a high-risk, high-reward account because we put in the work,
Switch my phone.
hundreds and hundreds of hours on these trades, and I've been doing this for 18 years, if you don't agree with it, don't agree with it.